Hi, welcome to this video. Recently I was talking to my friend Hoofdjaw about making interesting drum patterns inside the EURORACK environment. Sometimes it's not so easy if you don't have a fully fledged sequencer like a NerdSec or a Hermod to create interesting drum patterns. It all becomes repetitive really quickly, and I found a really easy way to break this repetitiveness with probability and or logic. I will demonstrate this first on Pamela's new workout, because that module has everything that I use and everything that you need to create a drum pattern that hits when you want it to hit, but also has some variation. But after the quick explanation, because this is not going to take very long, I will show you how you can do similar things with other modules. Let's enjoy some drum patterns together on this cold and snowy day. Thanks, by the way, to my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters for supporting this video. In this patch here, you can hear how there is variation for the kick drum and the hi-hats as well if I unmute them. The snare is just a consistent hit here. You can see it on the LED here on the 4th channel of Pamela's new workout. The kick drum is triggered from the 3rd channel on Pamela's new workout. The hi-hat from the 2nd one. I always use the 1st channel of Pamela's new workout as my main clock. I've patched this permanently into a passive multiple, and on the 5th output here I have a reset output that's also permanently patched here. So I always have like 7 outputs for of clock for sending everywhere around the rack, which is really useful and a quick way to patch, because otherwise you have to start patching up multiples every single time or use stackable cables. I really enjoy doing it like this. That being said, let me show you quickly how I do this, because you can hear that we have a consistent 4 to the floor beat on the kick drum, but there's additional hits. At least that's how it's made here. Let me go into the menu. I hope you can see it. So we are using a gate. The level is set to 100. The width is set to very small. It doesn't matter that much. But it's best to keep it narrow. So there's no skips. This is actually a Euclidean pattern of 16 steps long with 4 triggers. But let me first mute the thing that's causing the variation here, and that's the logic section. So now I turned off the logic section of channel 3. You can hear that we are just getting our 4 Euclidean beats in a pattern that is 16 steps long, which results in a 4 to the floor situation. So I'm using logic to create variation, and I'm adding the 7th channel to the 3rd with OR logic. Now the 7th channel, is set to have a skip of 81%, so not very much triggers are getting through. I can even increase the skip. And if I then go back into the third channel and add logic to this, but it's important that you set the right channel here. So I'm using the 7th channel here to add to, well, to perform a Boolean logic operation with the 3rd channel with. Now it's set to XOR. It's important that you set it to OR, which is like mixing them in a mixer. And that's really it. Once again, you can hear that we are getting our consistent 4 to the floor beats, but there's something additional happening every once in a while, and this is just simply a result of the 7th channel with a very, very low probability being mixed together with the 3rd channel. You could do this externally as well with an OR logic module, or even just with a utility mixer. Don't be scared that you are going to ruin any modules if you start mixing gates. They will clip usually at 10 volts, maximum at 12 volts. It should be fine to just send this mixed signal through to whatever module you want. I mean, I'm sure you're never afraid to mix 2 VCOs together, and when those reach their maximum voltages, you could be adding 2 times 10 volts as well. We never fear that, but I've always heard that people fear mixing gates. Well, you shouldn't. I did the same thing that I did for the kick drum for the hi-hat, which results in a consistent hi-hat pattern, but with ratchets here and there. Now, one thing that I usually don't do, but that could be interesting to do, is instead of just going for a multiplier on the channel that you are adding to the consistent pattern, you could set a Euclidean pattern there as well. Let me change the behavior of the 7th channel here, which is the one that we are adding to the 3rd. So now the probability is set to 100%. Well, the skip is set to 0. You can hear that all the triggers from the 7th channel are now added to the 3rd, which is simply ridiculous. But let me set a Euclidean pattern here. Let's make it 8 steps long, and let's create 3 triggers. So maybe you like the feel of this particular groove, but you don't want it to be consistent every time. And you can simply set, where is it, the skip to a high number. And then the additional drum hits that add to the 4 to the 4 pattern won't be as random as before. Now I want to imagine that you don't have a Pamela's new workout. Maybe you just have one trigger module for your kick drum. That would result in this situation where you just have one trigger for your kick drum, one loop which is always the same. But no fear, you can use other modules to achieve the same thing. Let me move my camera a bit here. So for example, you might have a logic module here. I'm using the bitmix from Schlappy. And then you can just use the logic of that module to mix your gates. So you want to connect your consistent 4 to the floor pattern. I changed out the sequence for my synth to being 6 steps long. What I can do now is add one of the stage outputs, which are gate outputs on my sequencer, to the logic input here. And this way we can mix together the gates. And maybe you end up liking this, but you don't want this to be consistently hitting every time. And then you can just use an external probability module. I'm going to use ZULARIC REPETITOR for this. And then if you run it through, you can set a lower probability for that gate to hit. As you can hear, maybe you have a module like Nibbler or something that creates Euclidean patterns. Let's remove this. So if I take an output of this Nibbler here, which is sending out gates, which results in this kind of loop. And then once again, maybe you don't want this to be consistent every time, and you send this additional gate or trigger through a probability module. And this results in patterns, loops that you have control over, but always change a little bit. And if you use this in a patch, it might not be too obvious for the person listening that you actually did not do a lot of work to create this interesting drum pattern. Now let's use another gate output of Nibbler here. Let's turn up the probability. I want to show you that if you're using a logic module or even a utility mixer to mix your gates, when one of the gates is too long, it can mask the other one. As you can see, the one we're using for the 4 to the floor pattern is really short, but this one is really long. And this is the reason that I told you in the beginning of my explanation, that it's better to set short widths, short lengths for your gates, and you don't run into this problem. But well, if you run into this kind of problem, don't worry. If you have an envelope or function generator left in your system, you can just send that gate into the trigger input of a function or envelope generator, set a really short rise or attack and a really short fall, and this should make your longer gate a shorter trigger, as you can see here. As I said, you don't really need to use a logic module, you can just as well use a utility mixer. And for the probability setting, which I will lower once again, I am using ZULARIC REPETITOR, which in itself sends out interesting patterns, but there's one setting on the module that solely works as a probability gate, or a skipper, if you will. Now there's lots of alternatives for my setup here. For Euclidean patterns and probability, you could use a module like ZULARIC REPETITOR. You can use DIVSKIP by Divkid. I haven't worked with that module, but I think it's a really interesting module. It has a good feature set. There's more alternatives, of course. There's Chrono by Yolin Lab that has a probability setting. There's one by Mutable Instruments. Is it grids or, well, marbles, for example? This also sends out interesting patterns that you can use, maybe in conjunction with a probability module. There's an interesting module built by a French builder, Kaona Instruments, called Skippy. It has a really wide feature set when it comes to triggers and gates. There's all kinds of interesting things that you can do with it. One of the things that it does is Euclidean patterns. There's another module by Larix Electro, which is also a French builder, called Trig Generator, I think. This also generates interesting trigger patterns. Have a look at that. If you are into more obscure builders, there is of course Nibbler, like I showed you. I mean, there's so many builders and so many modules out there. This is it for this very practical video. Let me know if you liked this video, this format where I focus on one technique and make a shorter video about it. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. Bye.